Yes, here we go. It's the Monday Club at 7 o'clock, and it's on the back of 3 points for Celtic. Thank fuck for that. It did not feel that way at half time, I tell you. The knives are sharpening and all that carry on. Anyway, we'll talk about all that and a lot more, I'm sure, this evening. Jonathan, how are you? Good weekend?
Yeah, I'm all good. Just about recovered. The heart's just about came back to
Good,
normal.
mate.
There was a lot of noises going on yesterday afternoon.
Yes.
I think our mum tried to call both of us whilst the game was on. I actually spoke to her later
Aye,
on
you got patched,
in the day.
man.
And she got patched, and I said, "Mum, you need to know the script. Celtic were playing. They were drawing one each. There's no danger that phone is getting picked up by either of your sons whilst the football is on."
Aye.
And she got told. And she's a
got
good girl. She went back in her box.
Good girl. I knew something like that was coming. I had a good weekend too. It was over in a flash, but that's what it's all about, mate. It was a good time that was had by all. I was dying yesterday, man. The last thing my heebie-jeebies could take was coming on here in the back of a draw. We ended up obviously getting the points, but I've got to be honest, man. By then, I'd mentally checked out of doing the show. So, big thank you to Terry and Phil for doing it. And yes, I recovered with plenty of sleep. I was jamming today, man, jamming. And remind me, half past, I need to turn the spuds off, man. I've got loads of rose tattoos under my way, and I didn't want to forget about the spuds because then it's just you know what I mean. It's just a waste of time. It's just going to be a big, tatty's on fire. I didn't want that. Anyway, I wish your tatty was on fire. He's not on the team. Anyway, all that good stuff means gives me a like, gives a share. As always, you can slag the hair. That's entirely up to you as well. If you want to become a Bhoycie Bus member, like some of you have, it's $1.99 a month, like Sanfan Celtic, Phil McGinley, Jim C, Danish, Martin K, loads of yous in there. It's $1.99 a month. All the content is free, though. It's totally up to use. And obviously, head along to piesports.com, a tasty pastry treat. You can get pies there with 12.5% off. Such a random discount, that, eh? Never really thought about that. But anyway, 12.5% off if you use the code BUS1888 at the checkout. Right. Take it away, son.
Well, Russell, what we witnessed at the weekend was a glimpse into Celtic's future. If we had a crystal ball and looked at the game as a game of two halves, then if the season continues like the first 45 minutes, then Celtic will end the season scrambling for points and scrambling for prizes. However, if Celtic were to produce the second half performance that they showed at the weekend, then they will storm along to a third successive title in a row. We have seen the return of Carter Vickers. Rio Hatate is due back shortly. And when we look at the upcoming fixture list this weekend and even midweek, you have Rangers going to Kilmarnock, a place they have yet to win at this season. And there is an opportunity for the road to the championship to take another twist. But the question is, will Celtic be able to take advantage? And will this season ultimately be one that is successful for the good girls and indeed boys?
I thought there'd be a bit of fun tonight with the good girl thing. Much ado about nothing, in my opinion. I think. Do you know what's weird? We'll just crack on with that because it seems to be something that people want to talk about. We will get to the game and all that as well. Obviously, like I say, Phil and Terry did a good job yesterday, sort of covering it better than I would have. See the good girl comment at the end, right? I've listened to it a few times today. I'm convinced it's Richard Gordon that says it.
It might well be. I'm not entirely sure.
He hands the microphone back over. He's clearly, because does she not say as well, he's passed the microphone back, and then suddenly his voice is proper loud, and it's like, good girl, and I'm like, just that voice. I mean, we've interviewed Richard Gordon on the bus once, second best pal, and I'm like, that's fucking. It's him who said good girl. That's what I thought anyway. I mean, we'll find out in good time, I'm sure. We need to get Richard back on with the judge and we'll grill him on it. But the more I listened to it, I was like, see, I think it was Brendan that said it. Even if he did, good girl. I mean, Jesus Christ, he's definitely not wanting to answer the question. She keeps pushing it, kidding on. She's really curious. She is trying to write a headline, and even if he has said "good girl," nobody cares, mate. It's as simple as that. Nobody cares. Let's not turn it into freaking misogyny and all this shit. And yeah, it's just nonsense. And by the way, see if they do try and do that, that will prove that they've always tried to find an angle to write headlines about anyway, that in a negative light. That would actually double down, you could say, Jonathan, on the point that I think Brendan was trying to make.
It plays into his hands. It plays 100% into Brendan Rodgers' hands. He'll 100%, I think, grab that. His presser tomorrow, I think, will be definitely worth tuning in for, because I would imagine he will have a few lines already in his mind as to what he's going to say on the back of it, because the media are now latching onto this. There's massive calls all over the shop for an apology and that he's out of order and he's a misogynist and he's sexist and all of that coming to the fore. And all he said is a wee throwaway comment. And to be fair, she's been annoying. He's just batted her off if it's him who's even said it. So I think he'll look at that and think, you know what? This is an opportunity as well to take the spotlight off the players. Big pressure situation for the players at this moment in time. Brendan Rodgers is quite happy to be the one that's the fall guy here, if it means diverting the media attention away from the players and the scrutiny that they're under just now. So if it means he's going to be the centre of attention for the next few days, not Brendan Rodgers' first time. I dare say Brendan quite enjoys being centre of attention, Russell. I think, as I say, his presser tomorrow might be one of his best since he's came back, because I guarantee he'll have a couple of lines already thought out for how he's going to respond to this.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, mate. I think that's probably true. Whilst he's wanting to take the sort of focus off the players, he definitely needs to get his focus on them though as well. I mean, that first half, if we now turn our attention to the game a bit, that was as bad as it's been. When we needed a reaction more than ever, we found ourselves 5 points behind going into that game yesterday. And we were fucking terrible. Like, we looked like what we have done so many other times this season, but at least in some of those we had a points cushion, and maybe you could argue complacency creeping in, a bit lackadaisical, a bit too relaxed. That first half, though, worries me that on the back of obviously with the backdrop of a 5 point deficit, not a position we're used to being in the league. I considering how far it's fallen off a cliff, I've got to be honest and say that is not the type of performance I expected us to be putting in the first half. Not that my expectations matter worth a jot, but I think everyone, as and I would like to think Brendan as well, but expected a bit more in that first half. Why do you think it was still so flat? I know we've been scraping for answers for this all season, but we can't deny this time around, the chips were down. We had to make a fist of it. We had to come out with a lively start, and we had to set the tone. Instead, we were a goal down, and deservedly a goal down, and a really insipid display. And I just worry how up for it these players can get themselves. They can't rely on going behind and getting motivational half-time team talks, Jonathan, and making 3 subs to try and come to life in games. They've got to start like that now. We're in a title fucking race, for fuck's sake. We're behind in the title race. I just don't understand how they seemed. The performance was so disconnected from what I associate with a team going for a title when it's nip and tuck the way it is. It's so the polar opposite, that type of display in the first half. And we are going to talk about the second half in a positive light for anyone panics that have been on negative normers. But that first half, there's Joe Henry coming in there, for example, and he's saying, first half was utterly honking. Kuhn is the Kuhn effect. Don't play him. I mean, you work with him all week. If you don't, surely there's warning signs that this guy isn't that good, or the performance he put in the first half, there's mirrored what else he's done since he's came here. What warranted that start, and why was he so, if he is off the boil or true to form, either way, can these not be identified before? I don't know. I just felt that that display in the first half was not what we'd be hoping for. When we need to be chasing the weekend, if you like, because Rangers play ahead of you. They've got their points on the board. I'd expect more urgency, a bit more belief, and people want to dictate outcomes. Players were not wanting to dictate outcomes enough. They wanted to play safe still. You cannot carry on being safe if you want to go and win that title.
No, and I felt like there was a lot of nerves as well around the team, as if they almost didn't believe, they were going to be able to win a game like Motherwell away. There was a distinct lack of belief in that first half, I felt as well, which is astonishing when you consider how successful a lot of these players have been over the past few years. So I felt like the whole thing was very disjointed. It was the last thing I expected from Celtic going into that game, because usually I always kind of feel that, with the Brendan Rodgers team, when the chips are down and he's under pressure and he's got to get a win, he generally does have those quicker starts to games. He generally does get a much higher level of performance for a full 90 minutes rather than just 45, as we'll touch upon later on. But, that first 45 was nowhere near good enough. And as I said in the opening, if that is any indication of what we still have in our locker for the rest of the season, this season will not end well. We simply cannot be putting in those types of performances again throughout the course of the remainder of the season. If we have any hope of winning this league title, we need to be on it and showing much more desire from minute one. You only have to look at our rivals, and I don't like to do it, but we're in a title race, and I think you have to sometimes be honest about that. And when you're looking at it, they got off to a flying start at Ibrox against an informed Hearts team, truth be told. And they put them to the sword and had that game done and dusted very early on. Whereas we were expecting some form of reaction. We were used to getting some form of reaction, and the players just seemed to be almost unsure of themselves. It actually took me back a little bit, Russell, to that Neil Lennon season, that he actually ends up winning the league title in, but it gets curtailed early. And if you remember that season, Rangers had won the derby just before Christmas, and then Rangers were putting in very similar types of performances to what we just witnessed Celtic do in that first half, as they completely fell off a cliff in that second half of the season and allowed Lenny, who obviously took full advantage of it, and hats off to him for that, but he was able to take full advantage and rack up that deficit that secured the title. Whereas this season, it looks as if the roles have reversed, and it's almost teetering on Celtic falling off that cliff with some of these performances. I mean, the only shred of comfort you have is they get away with it more often than not over the last 10, 11 games. Celtic have managed to win the vast majority of them, despite having either poor first half performances, poor second half performances, sometimes poor full stop, end of period, the end, goodbye. Celtic have actually always managed to find ways to win, and that first half, though, if they put that sort of performance in, I think they'll be fine at the midweek against Dundee at home. But if you do that again against Hearts at Tynecastle, you'll get punished. You'll get punished, and the game could be over before you even get started. And Celtic have to be aware of that, because they cannot afford to drop any more points over the next run of games, particularly with Ibrox looming, where Rangers are going to fancy their chances big time of beating us here.
I liked your inner Roy Keane coming out there. They'll get punished. They'll get punished. You went high-pitched middle there. That was good. That was very Roy Keane-esque. I like that. Always got a bit of time for Roy. I think with that performance in the first half, it's one of these things as well where it's still, despite the much improved second half, and it was a much improved second half, Celtic looked more at it. The subs made the difference. How much credit does Brendan get for making those changes? Or is such as the sort of the narrative or the story that he doesn't want to be written, or is allowing others to write that he doesn't want to be a part of? How much does it mean that he got it wrong as well? When you look at that first team setup, I liked Iwata coming in, but again, I've got to look at the progression of Iwata in the team and go, you've pulled him out of fucking nowhere. I'm glad. I thought it was the right call, but how's this guy been so far out of the picture so often this season? By the way, Postecoglou didn't play him that much either, but that was what we felt was going to be the bedding in 6 months that we thought was going to be most suited to players that were coming from different continents. In the case of Kyogo, Hatate, Maeda, it was like we needed to get them straight in the team. It was like they had to hit the ground running, and we needed them straight away. We were in a more strong position when we got Iwata. Idah came, having been the player of the year in that same league that the aforementioned players came in. And we thought, wow, we're going to get the real Tomoki come season, his first full season. He's barely featured, yet he brings a balance to the team, undeniably. I like that aspect, but the rest of the performance over the course of the whole team in that first half, it was diabolical. And Brendan will get credit for the changes he made, but it was also faced with no choice but to make them. Now I've defended Brendan on numerous occasions this season, and again, I respect the fact that his changes came good and we got the win. I don't think his good girl comment was anything like what it's getting turned into. But I do question how motivated he's getting this team before crucial games such as yesterday, and where his thinking is with his first team. Is my biggest fear when I see Tomoki coming in, and I'm nodding along thinking that makes total sense to me, but he's only had sporadic appearances all season. What worries me is it tells me Brendan's not got a fucking clue what his best 11 is. Still, that's on him by the 26th of February. It is. And you can dress it up any way you want, that they've signed Dross behind his back, or he's not been a part of. He's had long enough to look at that squad and work out who he can hang his hat on, what system's going to work, particularly domestically, where we've not put on enough good showings, and he should have been able to suss that out by now. I still don't think, judging by the fact that a drastic change, I say drastic, but a change that was pretty definitive in the midfield by bringing in Idah, still required 3 changes to that 11 to actually get it to kickstart into gear. I think there's a lot of almost blindfolds picking the team here. Obviously, he's not doing that, but it's a lot of pinning the tail on whatever donkey might get you out of trouble right now. It feels a bit like that. I'm really not convinced Brendan knows his first 11, and I think he does deserve, a bit of heat for that as well. And he's got to know it by now. That's what's worrying me. And I don't think the players feel when they are getting chances or they are being included in the team, apart from the real sort of stalwarts of his 11, that they've got that much faith that Brendan has faith in them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of rotation happening within the team over this course of this season in, a variety of positions, and it does seem as if Brendan is struggling to find whatever the best combination is to unlock a lot of these teams that we're playing in Scotland, because let's bear in mind it's been the likes of Motherwell that have been a pain in the arse to us this season. It hasn't been Rangers that have been the problem. They've been no problem at all. We've taken care of them twice already this season. The problem has been against the other teams in the league, and that is where Brendan has not been able to find the winning formulas often enough. And, when you're chopping and changing your team so much, it's not building confidence on any of those players that are constantly in or out. If they're not getting a good run of games at it to get up to top form. So that is, again, another factor he has to kind of consider there. But at the same time, he's trying to find ways to win matches. And he does hold his hands up at halftime and accept to make the changes. We have seen managers in the past be more stubborn with stuff like that, and maybe give it another 10, 15 minutes in his defence. And that could have been absolutely cost-worthy if we'd let that run on any longer whatsoever. The longer that went as it was, nothing was going to happen. We're more likely the game was going to drift away from us. So he does at least make the changes at halftime to try and impact the game. It does make the difference in the second half. But, if you're asking me again who he's going to play at the midweek, again, you're probably almost struggling with some of the positions to determine what he does where. I'd be astonished if Kuhn, for example, gets another start for a while, because I thought he was dreadful. I just felt he was one of the worst, and there was a few contenders for that position, unfortunately. But if we're going to be actually making a fist of this, Brendan needs to be on the training pitch and working out who's the best players for what positions. And I think, he got subs right this time around, but you cannot, again, I go back to it, you cannot play like that for a first half of football and then expect to be able to make the changes at halftime that are going to win you games that you might already be behind in, or potentially you could be quite a bit behind it and almost out of reach of getting a result in it. So there is a lot of elements there that Brendan Rodgers has to consider. For me, he's got to try and find a team that's going to be consistent. What I will say, though, I think when we're looking at the defence, is Carter Vickers coming back, Russell, will make a monumental difference there. I think the chopper and changing at centre-backs has really not been healthy for the team. And having Carter Vickers back, I suspect if there is going to be a moment in time where this title race turns back in Celtic's favour, we might have just witnessed it at the weekend there with CCV returning to the first team, because if he stays fit, I think Celtic will still win this league title. That's how big he is.
Well, it was interesting because the second half performance gets a hell of a lot of credit, and obviously we take the subs into consideration. We'll get to Idah. I think he deserves a hell of a lot of praise for keeping his cool and getting us the goals. But Terry said it yesterday on the PMP. Celtic's performance seemed to get better with Cameron Carter-Vickers in the park. He seems to bring something to the team others don't. Cameron Carter-Vickers, make no doubt about it, when he's fit and firing, is a drastic upgrade on our best centre-back this season, Liam Scales. Now, that's not being overly critical of Liam Scales. Liam Scales, for me, is either punched to the maximum of his weight or above his weight this season. Good, fair fucks to him. He's been brilliant for us in terms of what he can do. But if we judge everyone by the same standards, which we don't a lot of the times in football, we judge someone like Liam Scales by standards that we've set in our mind subconsciously at a lower level. I think when it comes to someone like CCV coming in, you see the difference in having real quality there. And that is very, very important. And I would like to think crucial going into the rest of the season if CCV can stay fit. One of the fucking other things that annoy me, I sound like I'm being a moany bastard. We're going to get to the second half in more detail and talk about Idah and stuff, and it'll get more positive, I promise. One of the things that annoyed me, though, with Vickers is, I wonder if he was rushed back. Having signed the amount of centre-backs we did, he's still being rushed back, and that's cost us, him being in the team, far more this season than what it should have. That fucks me off, because whilst we had to endure Nat Phillips, not knowing which foot to put his boots on, whilst we had to look at Laga Bielka, I mean, at that game at Ibrox, I know we go back to, we kept a clean sheet, but come on. I mean, he was determined to give Rangers a goal, I think, that game on numerous occasions. Had moments where he looked steady. Don't let your eyes fool you, though. Overall, he was nowhere near what we needed. There's games throughout the season you think, wow, if CCV had been managed right from the summer going into this campaign, we could have had double the amount of appearances from him by now. And he would be in far more match fit form. And do you know what I mean? A far better flow than what we were going to be hoping from him is just to bounce straight back into the CCV of old after all these months out. Now, that for me is really frustrating in that sense. But do you know what? I'm still going to pin my hopes on him. I'm still going to hang my hat on him to be the one at the back who we really can count on. Look to other displays. Taylor's assist. Taylor gets a hell of a raw time, not least by Liam on the bus. Absolutely his gift to do so. That cross for the man we'll speak about in a minute, I thought was absolute top draw. And finally, you're seeing an early ball going into the box. Kyogo doesn't offer you the early ball. Not in a bad way. The only early ball he offers is if it's over the top and in behind. But not from out wide. There's no good putting balls like that in the box when Kyogo's there. But with Celtic not playing that impulsive, spontaneous type of football that we've been used to as well, and it being more measured, he's making runs that are way out of time, out of sync with how the side's playing. It's up to you what side of the debate you sit on with whose fault that is, whether it's Kyogo's spot on or whether the team should be looking for him earlier and things like this. If for me, if 10 players are playing a system, then there should be all 11. I think he gets, again, you talk about being held to different standards. I think he's held to different levels of criticism as well. And I know one ever wants to. Oh, wait! Jonathan, wait, I need to stop.
Oh.
It's the man on the cobble bridge. Ian Roy, he's talking pish. Ian, like, wait till like you're off the set of Lord of the Rings, mate, before you just start coming in with that sort of patter. Come on, you. Terrible. Absolutely. Not even a dog in sight. What are you doing? Just sitting on the bridge. Just casual. He's peace, mate. Nobody cares. But anyway, yeah, I wonder if CCV will be a catalyst, and you can take that away because I'm waiting to turn off my spuds.
Yeah, well, I think, as I say, Carter Vickers is going to be absolutely huge for Celtic in the run-in. He gives everybody in the team a massive boost with, whoever he's playing with at centre half. They always play far better when Carter Vickers is in the team. Carter Vickers is one of those players that you can hang your hat on in games like this, where he is the type of guy that if Celtic are going to win this title, you're going to look back over the next run of games and say Carter Vickers was absolutely critical in it. And for me, him coming back is probably one of the biggest bonuses coming out of that game, because we didn't really concede a chance after Carter Vickers, returns off the bench. We looked a much more composed outfit at that moment in time. We looked as if we had all of the answers defensively when he came on. The Motherwell players were not getting in behind at all. And I think when you look, even at the other players around him, they all take a lot more confidence from that as well. And you're right to mention Greg Taylor too, because Taylor's assist is perfectly on the button, for Idah. And I'll tell you what, as much as Greg Taylor isn't everybody's flavour of the month, for me, he's a damn sight better than Burnaby. And, if you're going to ask me who I'm hanging my hat on in these remaining games in this league season at left back, it's Greg Taylor every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. You can argue we should have had a better one in, but that is not where we're at now. We are where we are. We have to make do with what we have. And Greg Taylor's been over the line a few times. Greg Taylor knows what it takes to win league titles at Celtic. And again, he stepped up when we needed him, with that assist. It was a great ball in. And I actually want to talk about that first goal, Russell, because it's been a long time since we've sounded the old klaxon on the Bhoycie Bus, but that had shades of Martin O'Neill era Celtic, that type of goal. That was like a very Chris Sutton-esque or John Hartson-esque header, I felt from that.
He enjoyed it too, didn't he, Sutton?
You could tell he would have been proud of that one if it was Sutty that had managed to header that one into the net. That would have been one he would have been quite happy to watch when it comes around by little Z every few years. If that had been Sutty's type of goal, he'd have been quite happy watching that one over and over again. But it did give me flashbacks to, Martin O'Neill's time at the club, with just how good a header that was. And it's something a little bit different. We don't score many goals like that. And that's what it's going to take at this point, because, that a lot of the teams have figured us out with how to neutralise Kyogo. You can say it's Kyogo's fault. You can say it's Brendan's fault. There's probably an element of other teams working out how to neutralise them as well. Whatever reason, it's not happening for little Kyogo at the moment, and it hasn't really been happening for him for most of the season. But there is, there we go, there he is, the Martin O'Neill klaxon. It's a bit late, but
I forgot I had that.
I know, I was teeing you up for it, but I just presumed you never had it anymore.
I was just trying one of my roast tatties, mate, just to make sure that we're all right. Texco Finest, mate. Texco Finest.
I hope they were as good as Idah's header was. I hope they were as good as that. But as I say, I think when you're looking at it, when that header goes in, you could just feel the momentum beginning to shift in Celtic's favour. And I have to say, that was the start of a second half performance that was far more like what Celtic will need to put in over the remaining games if they're going to get over the line in this title race. Because I feel quite comfortable in saying, if Celtic perform in the remaining games like they did in that second half against Motherwell, where there was a bit more unity, there was a lot more urgency in the play, there was a lot more of a connection, I felt, between the supporters, the players, the manager, that was all kind of there in the second half, then Celtic will win the title if they can play that like that consistently. But the problem has been they just cannot find that consistency. And we are always talking about turning points in a season, Russell. For me, if Celtic are going to win the league, I feel that is going to be the turning point we look back on as those two late ones against Motherwell and Carter Vickers scoring. I feel it has to be now or never. It has to be coming if we're going to win this title. That turning point has to be around now. It has to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was a weird one at the weekend as well, because at half time I seen no way that we would win the game. That's how I felt. I was talking about Rodgers leaving at that point in time, and I was saying, you take set what's in front of you. I mean, the performance week in, week out, it's just not been there. And if we're any chance here, you need to take him out of the situation. The second half, just to show you how quick opinions and moods and emotions can change in football, gives you that hope. But one thing I want to be, relatively realistic on here is we've had a few of these moments already. Where is that turn as have we turned the corner? I go back to that game at Ibrox. So we turned the corner then because the performance had been poor, and that was us going to kick on. Phrases like this have been used all season, and even when we had our best run of form. I mean, remember it took us to December to get finally 3 wins in a row domestically. It then was 8 wins from 9, 1 a draw. Very decent form, to say the least, domestically. Yet no one felt like we'd kicked on at that point either. At no point of the performances and the results been in a tandem for a consistent period of time where we've had that confidence. Now it's all about muddling your way through at the end. That was maybe the first example of it. What we can hope from that is it gives us belief again and helps with that. I've got to be realistic, though, in my take on it. I'm usually quite optimistic. I'm not quite sure the buy-in is there from the players. I think there's moments where they get their hopes up. I think come around the next game, they seem to revert to whatever this mentality or mindset is that they've sadly picked up like a disease this season. I just feel like it'll creep back up on them again. We're better. Our best chance is because we're playing midweek and again at the weekend. 3 games in the space of 6-7 days. That's good for Celtic, I think, right now. Less time in between to reflect. Less time to, I don't know, as I say, resort to the mentality that they've shown by the time the next games came around again. I don't want that. I think this week is one where we've got a real chance to get 6 important points, but also just try and get all the fans to believe in them again. If they can't find it in themselves, week on week, to believe in themselves and what they're doing, which I think is an issue, try and get that belief back for all ours, because I don't think that's been there either. However, when we look at the goals from Idah, Idah's been much maligned when the rumours of him signing began for any performance he's put in that have not been brilliant so far. But he has chipped in with his goals. The 2 finishes he does, I was glad, again, Phil and Terry picked up on it. We used to talk about Giacomakis being the FTF, the first-time finisher. That's what we've seen there. First-time finishes, one with the left foot, beautifully opens his boot to slot that away, almost like on the half volley. It was a top-draw finish. That the header you've touched on already, well, not touched on, spoke on well. But those 2 goals are massive moments. We need to look back at, the week before. He misses an absolute sitter to make it 2-0. That header, he was lacking there. So for him to have the sort of attitude and the strength of character to not let that deter him, to come back and pull off 2 finishes like that, hopefully he's another one that can really kick on from there. And we don't see any misses like we did from the week before. We see Idah, celebrating more often big important goals, because it is extremely, extremely important for Celtic. What do you think he's brought to the team so far? It's easy to say words like he's a different dynamic or that. He just seems to be occupying defenders. He occupies them. He seems to give Celtic I was going to say the word different there, more variety in the ways that they can try and get efforts off at goal. It's one of these ones, because you look at him playing and you go, he's not got the ability that Kyogo does. Sometimes styles make fights. And right now, his style suits Celtic, I think, better than what we've seen from Kyogo. Kyogo up top in this team doesn't work. I didn't mind what I seen from him when he played in behind Idah, and he got the goal from the edge of the box. And that first half, particularly, he was picking up wee pockets of space. No one knew who was to pick him up. And I like that. Him back up top there at the weekend, it doesn't work. It's not in this system. Obviously, Kyogo up top can work. We've got 2 years of evidence of that. But for whatever reason, in this Celtic team, It ain't working. And I'm just not convinced he's the answer. I'm also just, my hunch could be completely wrong, is Rodgers isn't all that comfortable playing Kyogo then as one of his three that would normally be his midfielders. I don't know how many fingers I held up there, about 100. But his three midfielders obviously are sacrificing with them to play Kyogo in behind. And I don't think Brendan, for whatever reason, I could be wrong, is that comfortable doing it. And that's why he's not persisted with it. If it is a straight shootout for the number 9 shirt, you've got to go Idah right now, mate.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's got to be Idah up the top. I think if we're, again, going back to that argument of who you hang your hat on over these games, I think with one thing for sure with Idah, he will give everything he has. You can say some of the players perhaps aren't buying into Brendan Rodgers, but Idah certainly would not fall into that category. He is somebody who's fully invested in, what the club is trying to achieve this season and what Brendan Rodgers is trying to coach him to do. And, to be fair, I think he's somebody that would quite like the thought of getting a permanent move up here in the summer. I know there's no option to buy, but that doesn't mean it necessarily won't happen just because there's no option in there. And I would be very surprised if Idah didn't actually fancy, signing on for Celtic in the summer if that was to become an option that was on the table further down the line. So he's got a lot to prove over the next number of games to the end of the season. And I think when you're looking at somebody like Idah, he does have something that wee bit, different. I know you're not wanting that word used, but I'm going to use it anyway. He does offer that bit of difference to the team up top. There's moments in the game where his hold-up play is just something that we can't really get if you're playing Kyogo up there, or even your midfield three and your wingers. They don't have that same ability to hold a man off. He buys the free kick towards the end where they have the VAR check, if you remember, for a red card, where he's almost actually turned his man and got in a shot on goal that he might well have scored with if he hadn't been pulled down. So he does bring different aspects to it. I mean, when we're touching on Kyogo, there is an interesting thought that I've had with Kyogo, which I wonder if Brendan might look at, because what he is finding is his wingers at the moment, Russell, they're very unreliable. None of them are particularly playing well. Kyogo was actually a left winger before Ange Postecoglou brought him in. I'm pretty sure he played out there quite regularly as a winger when he was in Japan at Yokohama. And, I wonder if that is potentially somewhere that Kyogo could fit more into this system. He certainly will offer you more off the ball as well, like Idah, because he's quite happy to do the running, Kyogo. He's obviously got a lot more ability to go past the man. He's intelligent with his brain as well. Maidah's able to pick up those spaces. Idah was somebody who should really have had one, and this is an absolute stinker in that game. And, if it's Kyogo ghosting out at the back post from out wide, he's not missing something like that. So I do wonder if it's not what I would have necessarily seen Kyogo playing, but if we're talking needs must towards the end of the season, it would be one hell of a gamble to put him out wide. But I do wonder if there is an actual argument to be made there that might be something that's worth considering, especially perhaps against the likes of a Dundee midweek, where we should be strong enough to win that game. That's the key word, should be strong enough. I know we can't really take anything for granted with how Celtic have been playing this season. But for me, there is an argument there that could potentially be where to put him, because at the end of the day, I think all the other wingers have been inconsistent. I think Yang looked good when he came on, but I don't trust him. If you're talking about putting your hat on somebody, do I think Yang's going to be able to consistently deliver that from now to the end of the season? Absolutely not. He'll do flashes. Palma will do flashes. Kuhn, I think, will do fucking nothing. But I think when it comes to somebody like Kyogo, putting him out wide, Russell, I wonder what your thoughts are. Could that be the missing key for Brendan to be able to accommodate both of them?
Well, it's one way of doing it, definitely. I just worry sometimes where his form's at, I don't know. It's mad. It's like Kyogo's smile has gone. It's so weird to see someone who was like that. I can certainly hope that he will come back and bring some of that joy to us, like he has in moments this season, but sporadic moments again. I suppose like the Celtic team. But yeah, you want to get your best players in the side as well, and the wingers are that out of form. Why not? Why not get Kyogo out there? But again, these are things that you could have identified all season. That's why I find it so difficult to sort of fathom that we'd be making, sort of spots like that now.
I think that's quite difficult, though, because he didn't have another striker he could trust, though, until January, did he? I think that was probably why that's ended up happening. I take your point. He could have tried it earlier on since he's got Idah in, but he doesn't trust O. That's fairly clear. And if he doesn't trust O, then he's got to put Kyogo through the middle in that first half of the season. So I think he was a little bit hands tied, if you like. I felt up until the point where we got another striker in, and that was something that again goes back to feelings in the summer on recruitment. And even again in January, if somebody like Idah should have been brought in far earlier than they were, and it did strike us as a panic buy, and that's why a lot of fans have been sceptical as to whether or not he's going to be good enough to get us over the line. But I think in terms of looking at playing Kyogo out wide, I think that's only really been a viable option over the past month roughly that you'd have been able to actually trial that. But I think it's certainly one that's got legs to it, because as I say, that was where Ange picked him up from. I think Ange might have even played him out wide to begin with. I can't remember. I think he might have for the first couple of games before reverting him into the middle. But I certainly don't think it's a bad idea.
Ange brought him on wide left at Tynecastle,
and then
played him wide left at Ibrox.
Edward in the middle. Very well remembered.
He supplied Edward, remember, with that opportunity, and Edward did a Chris Iwelumo, and it sort of came off his heel when he just had to side foot it home.
Yeah.
And then I think Andrew got sick of Edward sort of waltzing about, swapped Edward off and put Kyogo through the middle. Kyogo tested the keeper a couple of times in the second half. I'm sure and then after that it was like, right, okay, he's the live wire up front that we need. That suited the style of football as well. And again, I'm not a listener, I can't emphasise enough. Andrew Taggart comes in, he says, look, Bhoycie, I love it when the comments start that. Listen or look. I like that. Look, Bhoycie, Kyogo's faster to 50 goals than Larson. Larson played attacking midfield though for his first 2 seasons. But anyway, Andrew, I don't want to debate it too far. But it's not him, it's Rodgers' rotten style of football. I think all players will need to adapt as well. And I think they've struggled with it. Do I think Rodgers' style of football is particularly non-rotten? I could probably agree with you on that, Andrew. I think it has been pretty rotten most of the season, to be honest with you. As I said earlier, eyes don't lie. Eventually you go, fucking hell, I can't take much more of this. But yeah, it's an interesting one. See what the other takes I wanted to give you on Idah, and it was a brilliant point that was brought in by Wolftone. Hope it is one of the Wolftones. That'd be brilliant. Every time Idah scores, his price tag goes up by $1 million. Now, see when you think about that, that's so interesting. David Keller, I think, was in the chat earlier saying, apparently, and I've not seen this anywhere else, so I don't know where he's got it from. I'm not doubting him, though. He said that Norwich City were quoting something along the lines of £8 million in January. That's why Celtic wouldn't pay it for Idah. That would be very much. But we didn't get an option to buy on him. Now, I think we need to accept in 2024, if we want options to buy 8 for a striker, $8 million is pretty much going to be very, very bog standard. If not, you need to be more ambitious. We expect more ambition than that. But he's got a point here, Wolftone. With us not having the option to buy on it, and let's just say for argument's sake, we don't fucking know. Let's say every time he scores, his price tag is going up by $1 million, and it does start from that 8 million platform. Naturally, like San Fan Celtic saying here, hopefully it'll be worth 30 million then by May. I get that. Obviously, he's not going to buy $1 million per goal. But realistically, if they were from a starting point of £8 million they wanted from, and say Idah comes in and see over the next 12 games, 13 games, however many it may be, cup final goal flung in there, league deciding goal, or league goal on the last day of the season that helps swing it, and really a lot of important goals, including derby goals and things like this in between. I think then you're looking at one where he'd be out of financial reach. But see when guys like Idah continue to become out with your financial reach, the standard keeps dropping as to who it is you're then identifying. Celtic's going to need to bite the bullet and get into 2024 at some point soon. Now, if we're to believe Idah was an identified player by Rodgers, then again, they've got to back the manager. He's got 2.5 years left in his deal. If everyone's singing from the same hymn page and hymn sheet, then I would have paid the 8 million and went and got the guy that the manager wanted. Because it's Idah, we all know better. He's not worth that. But that's not the point I'm making. I worry that sometimes players, when we see fees, we're still so stuck, even as a fan base at times, in years gone by, that we hear 8 million for Idah, and we think that's a scary amount. It probably isn't for a guy that scored international goals. It probably isn't. But not to have the option to buy on it, that's what worries me the most, because I think the original point by Wolfstone that, ironically, every time he has a positive contribution in this team, that price tag will rise and give Celtic more and more of an excuse to say they are priced out.
Yeah, there is that argument that could potentially end up happening, particularly depending on how his performances and goal return goes up until the end of the season, especially if he was to pop up with some important ones between now, and then. But I also look at it and think Celtic have gambled on Norwich, with Van Hooijdonk. I think he's only there on loan as well. So I wonder if there is going to be a case there that if he does well at Norwich buy Van Hooijdonk, they then need to get Idah off the books because he's fallen down the pecking order when he goes back there even more. And there is a possibility there that Celtic can negotiate and try and lowball. Whether all that will come to fruition and that is the way it ends up playing out, I don't know. But that's what I suspect is what the board's strategy is there. And it's a risky one because you're right. If he does end up, getting goals that win us derby matches, get us goals that potentially win us cup finals or win league titles, over the next few months, then there's going to be a lot more interest in him if he's doing it in the high-profile matches. Other clubs are going to end up sniffing around. You get into a bidding war with any other club in England now at that level, even the Championship, Celtic will get, outbid. There's just no two ways about it. Even the Championship now is full of money that, Scottish football just doesn't have. I think it's one of those ones with Idah that was there to be done. The player was wanting to come. I think the player would still want to come at the end of the season. I think, he's got his heart set on the club. I think he quite enjoys playing here already from the limited time we've seen him. And, he's clearly a supporter, as well. So I think there is an element there that Celtic can do business. And if we're talking £8 million for Idah, it's not that far out of the realms of what Celtic have done in the past. Even under Brendan the first time, they spent, 9 million, I think it was, on Edward, under Brendan Rodgers the last time. And so again, if Brendan Rodgers is the one who's identified him and he was given, the 9 million for Eddie last time and he sold him on for, good profit further down the club, or, the club sold him on further down the line for good profit there on Edward, and he was certainly more than worth every penny we spent for the most part odds on Edward, then you've got to back the manager and believe that he's going to be good enough to find the players that are going to, take Celtic forward domestically and hopefully in Europe further down the line, as well. And you could spend 8 million on Idah, but you've got to also remember if he goes back into England 3 or 4 years down the line with a couple of league titles in the bag, a few important goals, making a bit of a statement in Europe, his price is only going to go up. Celtic could end up talking 20 million to sell him back into England, 25 million, maybe even 30 million. You never know how much money is going to just get chucked at players, in 5-10 years' time. So it's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things in England. So I think that was a missed opportunity if the rumour is that it was only going to cost Celtic £8 million. And it's a highly risky strategy if the board are doing what I suspect they are and hoping to lowball Norwich in the summer in the hopes that they sign Van Hooijdonk and just want to get this boy off the books and will take a lower offer just to make that happen and hope that, Idah as well has a word in their ear to say that Celtic is his preferred club. I think they're just taking a lot of chances they don't need to. And it's not the board's right to be determining who Brendan Rodgers thinks is good enough or not. There should be a budget that's set. This is how much he has. And really, if the club is run the way it should be, if Brendan Rodgers has identified a player that falls within that budget, there should be no question marks asked there. But, it goes back to Mark O'Neill, if you remember that famous story he told about the fact he wanted to spend 6 million on Sutton when he first came in. And Dermot Desmond said, are you sure about that? And Martin O'Neill said, who runs the football club? Was his response to Dermot Desmond on that, and that's well-known fact. And I think, again, the Celtic board, if it's a case that they have blocked Rodgers signing him for £8 million and only done the loan deal, Rodgers should have been asking, who runs this football club in the footballing department? Is it me or is it you? Who has the autonomy to make these decisions? And again, I think that is another area where the manager has let himself down this season.
Yeah, I mean, total control of it. He admitted at the start he wasn't going to get, but I think you're absolutely right, Jonathan. He should definitely have had more sway. It's that time, and what a belter of a shirt the big man Phil McGinley's got on the night. Wait to see this. First Celtic shirt I ever got. Yes. Hat then, Phil.
Hello. Yeah, all good. How are you guys?
Yeah, not bad, Phil. Not bad. That's a nice one. Nice.
Let me tell you a wee story about that shirt. You like this one, Jonathan? You like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I never had a Celtic shirt. And my next door neighbour, we were like a semi-detached house, Mark, right?
Oh,
Best
yeah, I know
pal,
the story. Mm-hmm.
Growing up. It's a bit dark by my standards, but, for such a young age, but I did it anyway. And he had quite a few Rangers shirts by this point, and they were in the era of dominance, as you know, Phil. And I'd kind of been sort of hinting at getting one, you want me to watch Celtic? We keep getting, so close yet so far. I'm watching Paul McStay missing penalties in the Coca-Cola Cup final. But I've got to suffer that, but I don't get the joy of a first ever football shirt. First ever hoops. Well, okay. I stuck on one of his at 8 years old. Wore it underneath my school jumper or something like that, right? And I was like, he's like, what's that? I'm like, nothing. Just being a total little wide away. And he bizarrely just called for my mum. I don't know why my dad was like, I was like, well, your mum doesn't care. That Saturday, we went up the town for the usual shopping. And I knew where we were going. I watched this. JGP was outside the shopping centre at the time. I was like that. Fucking know what's happening. I got that, the full strip. Remember the socks were hoops?
Yep.
I had the full thing. And that's just how it was done. And I knew that day, I think he knew then he'd met his match. I was like, no, mate. There's no level I won't go to get my way.
It's the first Celtic shirt I got as well.
Is it?
Not this one I'm wearing right now. I'd be quite a miracle if I still fitted into it. But back in '95, this was the first one, that Umbro one as well.
Oh, classic, mate. It's an absolute classic. I love it. First player that comes to your mind when you see that shirt, Jonathan?
Oh, something like Paul McStay, I would say. I think Paul McStay.
Van Hooijdonk always comes to mind when I see that one.
Yeah. I got Hooijdonk on the back of my shirt, but it turns out his name's Van Hooijdonk. So somebody in my class said to me, you do know his name's Van Hooijdonk, don't you? I was mortified that I had a spelling mistake essentially on the back of my shirt. But Van Hooijdonk would have cost more because every letter.
That's what I was going to say.
75 pence.
Your folks need to remortgage the house, mate, just to get Van Hooijdonk on it. Anyway, Phil, we're here for Sutton Death. Let's do it.
We are indeed, yes. So it's that time again. It is the penalty shootout style competition between the brothers Boyce, Sutton Death, and the current score after the last game, I believe, is currently 12-7 to Jonathan. So it's 5 points in it. Still plenty of time for the end of the season. So Russell, you're still hanging in there, just like Celtic in the real title race. You are just hanging in there, mate. Just need to keep flying by the seat of your pants from game to game, essentially. And yes, we'll see how you go tonight then.
Muddle my way through it. But if Jonathan wins, I'll be the first one to say good girl to him. That's the truth.
So I'll do all the aesthetics just now, and we will get ready to get started.
Yeah, so this should be good tonight, Russell. I'm feeling reasonably confident in this now. I've got my 5 point lead.
I don't know, is Timmy Bing like one of your burner accounts? You sitting under that camera lens, like just fucking. Well, Timmy Bing used to be my mate, a bit like you. And now it's just like, he just turns heel. It's killing me.
Yeah, well, I've got a few fans. Got a few fans now, Russell. Success it brings people around.
Yes, Jonathan. Yeah. Loads of fans you've got, definitely, mate.
My dozens.
Dozens and dozens. Oh, God, here we go.
Okay.
I was chucking out my old work rucksack, and I found a few more pens, and I just thought of Sutton Death straight away, so I kept them. I was chucking out the rucksack, and I thought, I'll keep the fresh pens for all my wrong answers.
The lucky pen. You got a lucky pen for this?
No, fucking, are you joking?
Well, let's get started on then. So, Jonathan, you got the point last time. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first. I'll keep with tradition.
Okay, fair dues. Okay, so tonight's question, we're mixing it up a little bit 'cause it's been a while. It's not a Celtic question. It's a
That gives Russell a chance.
general football knowledge, more so European football. 19 answers in this one. And the question is quite simply, there are 19 teams from European capital cities that have won a major European trophy. So that is the European Cup / Champions League, the UEFA Cup / Europa League, the Cup Winners' Cup, or of course the Conference League. They're the 4 major European trophies over the years. So quite simply, I'm looking for any team from a European capital city that has won any of those trophies. Say 19 of them.
Oh, okay, well, that's not too bad. I'll start with the most successful one in the Champions League. I'll go Real Madrid.
Yeah, Real Madrid, of course. Correct answer.
Wait, are we saying the team of the city?
The team. There are multiple teams from some cities, so if you said the city, that would be the answer gone right away.
Okay, I was writing down cities, so yeah, this isn't the
teams.
lucky pen already.
You're off to a bad start already.
And it's a major European tournament,
Yep,
so
there's-
any of them.
So I say European Cup / Champions League, they've got the same lineage. UEFA Cup, Europa League, the Cup Winners' Cup, and the Conference League.
Okay. Conference Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup?
Cup Winners' Cup's included, yeah, even though it's defunct now, but it's included.
Okay. Let's start with Chelsea anyway.
Yeah, Chelsea, yeah, they have indeed.
I'm going to stick with the same city and go Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, they've won the UEFA Cup / Europa League a few times.
I'll stick with the same city then and go Tottenham.
Yeah, Tottenham have. They were the first ever winners of the UEFA Cup.
Very good. I am going to go for something a little bit more out there and go Ajax.
Yeah, indeed. Amsterdam, yeah. They've won a fair few European trophies along the way. Yep.
I'm going to stick with the same city for 3 in a row and say Arsenal.
Yeah, they've won the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah, you've done well there, sticking to London. I like it.
Thanks so much. Thank you for the praise.
Yeah, you do know there's more cities than just London, yeah. I'm going to go another one that's a bit more out there and say Porto.
Bastards.
Porto is not from the capital city.
Oh, is
They're
it
a
not?
wrong answer. They have won European trophies, but they are not from the capital city.
But I do know the capital city, and I did write it down. I think Benfica is from the capital city, Phil.
Oh, of course.
Benfica is indeed correct. Yes, that is the correct answer. Yes, indeed.
Get in there! Look at the wee huff forming. I can see it already.
Oh.
I love this. I love this so much.
I am going to say...
Oh, he's stuck. He's stuck.
Say PSG.
Oh,
Yeah.
they never won one.
Paris Saint-Germain won the Cup Winners' Cup in
Cup Winners' Cup.
1996. They did indeed. So you've kept yourself in it, Jono. PSG have got one European trophy to their name. It's the Cup Winners' Cup.
If I get this, if I won.
If you get this, you've won. Yes.
Alright, sound. I'm going to say, fuck knows why this was the third city I'd written down. But I'm going to say, I'll be right. Is that right? Aye, Red Star Belgrade.
Oh, that's right. Aye, that is right.
That is indeed correct. Yeah, finishing with a bit of style there. Red Star Belgrade did win the European
Very
Cup.
good.
They beat Marseille in the final,
Lucky
I believe, in
pen.
1990, I think it was. But yeah, that is indeed correct. So
Get
the rest
in
of the
there.
answers, some absolute belters in amongst these answers, to be fair.
Bucharest.
Some good ones.
So started
Bucharest
Bucharest,
would be right, yeah.
yep, Romania.
I had
Okay,
that.
so UEFA Cup, Europa League winners, Anderlecht, they're from Brussels, and CSKA Moscow from Moscow, Russia.
Oh,
There's a
Russia,
lot
but I
of
couldn't
teams
think
from,
of them.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, there's like 5 or 6 professional teams from Moscow, but CSKA are the only one that have won a European trophy. The Cup Winners' Cup, Sporting Lisbon, Sporting Club de Portugal, they've won it. West Ham United, they've also won the Cup Winners'
last
Cup
year.
and
Of course.
Conference League, they've won that. Dynamo Kiev, they've won it. That's the capital of the Ukraine. Slovan Bratislava, capital of Slovakia, they've won the Cup Winners'
Who's
Cup.
it? What's the Ukraine one?
Kiev, Dynamo Kiev.
That when Shevchenko
What
was
have
there.
they won?
They've won the Cup Winners' Cup. Remember, it's a defunct trophy.
When did they win that?
Oh, good while back. Yeah, it was any capital city. I would
No,
have
I
took
think
any
that's
answer.
interesting. I didn't know.
Yeah. The even more obscure one, though, obscure one is Dynamo Tbilisi, the capital of Georgia. Tbilisi. Yeah, they've won the Cup Winners' Cup. Yeah.
Wow.
Yuck.
And the last one, two teams from the same city, one of the biggest cities on the continent, both teams from Rome, Lazio and Roma. Jose Mourinho, of course, won the Conference League 2 years ago.
How do we not get Roma?
Aye, and Lazio won.
I had
the last
Milan
ever.
written down and didn't have the balls to go for it.
Yeah,
Well,
I was like, Milan, is that the capital of Italy? And it was like, I wasn't sure. Do you know what I mean? So that's why it was at the bottom of the list. Obviously, when it came to Belgrade, Lisbon, I was convinced London was easy. Madrid was the first one I've written, but I still wouldn't have got Atletico Madrid.
I knew they won the UEFA Cup.
Yep.
Totally wouldn't have got. That was a good question, man.
That was a good question.
Yeah, but that brings us now back to 12-8, so it's down to 4 points now.
Come on.
There you go.
It's on. It's
the turning point, Russell. Is this the turning point?
Everyone knows it. Everyone knows deep down I'm going to win it. That's what I like the most.
It's like Brendan Rodgers' ball with you. It's the odd consistent performance every now and then.
Good girl.
Every few weeks.
Anyway, that brings us to the end of the Monday Club. Just over an hour there. Thanks everyone who's been watching. Very much appreciate all your views coming in the live chat as well. Some good topics to discuss as well. And Celtic back to winning ways. Obviously, we'll have PMP Wednesday. We're going to have the TNF for the judge on Thursday. We're going to have Connor doing his audio-only download show, Carpool. That'll come out Wednesday morning. We've got the Friday Feeling with Phil. We've got more PMPs over the weekend. The Sunday Blether. What more do you want? As always, keep your eyes. I'm just trying to find the button to close it here. Keep your eyes on the bus. See you.